Hey there, students and teachers. Let's talk about the APUSH DBQ, the document-based question that is going to be encountered by all students who take the AP US History exam. Now, this is the 2017 version. I know there have been a lot of reworks the last few years. This is the most recent DBQ rubric. And this is part of my 8-month writing clinic. If you would like to get more information, go to tomrichey.net or just click in the description. I'll also put a card in the video so that you can get more information about that if you'd like. Also at tomrichey.net, you will find the one rubric to rule them all. This is a rubric that I've created with all of the points broken down so that you can see what you need to do to score every point. And I'm going to be using the one rubric available at tomrichey.net to explain the DBQ to teachers and students. First of all, let's go into the DBQ time frame. On the most recent incarnation of the AP US History exam, the DBQ time frame will be between 1754 and 1980. It will be sometime during or after the French and Indian War and before the election of Ronald Reagan as President of the United States. It will exclude the so-called periods 1 and 2 and the so-called period 9. So 1754 to 1980. Now, in class, you may do some DBQs that are pre-1754 for practice, but on the actual exam, you will not see a DBQ prior to 1754, basically starting with the events leading to the American Revolution. Here is a sample prompt that I've come up with that is right at the beginning of this window. Explain the causes of the rise of tensions between the American colonists and the British government in the period 1754 to 1776. Now, the first thing we're going to have to do is come up with a thesis or claim, something that responds to the prompt with a historically defensible thesis or claim that establishes a line of reasoning. The thesis must make a claim that responds to the prompt rather than merely restating or rephrasing the prompt. The thesis must consist of one or more sentences located in one place, either in the introduction or the conclusion. So as far as the thesis statement, first of all, it needs to be historically defensible. It needs to be something that is accurate. 2, it has to establish a line of reasoning. There has to be some type of point made and some sort of reasoning to go along with it. It needs to be in the introduction or the conclusion, and it needs to be very clearly in the introduction or conclusion. And finally, it should include a preview of points. Now, this is something that is not stated explicitly, but I haven't read a good thesis that doesn't show some sort of preview of the points that are going to be made in the body paragraphs. Here is an example of an unacceptable thesis. Tensions rose between the American colonists and the British government in 1754 to 1776. All this is a restatement of the prompt, a statement of fact, and it doesn't have a line of reasoning, it doesn't have a preview of points. Another unacceptable thesis would be tensions rose between the American colonists and the British government in 1754 to 1776 because of disagreements over slavery and states' rights. This person is confounding the American Revolution with the American Civil War. This is an example of a thesis that has a preview of points, but the points are not historically defensible. Wrong time, wrong war. An example of an acceptable thesis would be something like this. Tensions rose between the American colonists and the British government in 1754 to 1776 because of disagreements over taxation and violence between colonists and British soldiers. Now, this actually has a preview of points, multiple points. Now, note that there are only 2 points here, and sometimes 2 points are sufficient to earn credit for the thesis, but I always like 3 points. So this is what I would say would be an excellent thesis. Tensions rose between the American colonists and the British government in 1754 to 1776 because of disagreements over taxation, violent encounters between colonists and British soldiers, and repressive measures taken by Parliament. That would be an excellent thesis. What I would call maybe a thesis, because 2 points a lot of times will not be sufficient. So I always tell students, and you'll see this as a constant theme throughout, because you want to make sure that you do too much rather than too little. Now, you don't want to go overboard, but you want to make sure that you ensure that you're getting the point. It's best to go a little bit over the line than not quite cross the line to earn the point. You saw the boxes on the one rubric. You have to earn the point. Next, we go to contextualization. Describes a broader historical context relevant to the prompt. The response must relate the topic to the broader historical events, developments, or processes that occur before, during, or continue after the time frame of the question. This point is not awarded for merely a phrase or a reference. Now, you notice that I have contextualization above the thesis on the one rubric, because typically that will be written before the thesis. Now, contextualization could technically appear anywhere, but the reader is expecting to see it at the very beginning of the essay. Contextualization provides the link between the prompt and the thesis. That is why I prefer to see contextualization before the thesis, because you are setting that up. You're not just dropping your reader straight into the thesis. Contextualization, as I said here, should appear before your thesis statement, but it is not a requirement. What a student is looking to do with contextualization is to form a perimeter. You would think in terms of a battle or an army or something like that. You want to form a perimeter around your camp. So good contextualization will form a perimeter around your argumentative essay, giving the reader useful background information that will not be found in the body of the essay. So remember here, I've got this yellow line that is showing, okay, this is what is eligible for context, but you can't use the stuff that's inside. If you are using things in the essay, that cannot be your context. No double dipping. Whatever is counted as contextualization cannot be counted for any other point. So make sure that this is unique. Make sure that this is establishing a bit of background. Multiple sentences. Don't short yourself here. Never short yourself. One sentence is not going to be sufficient. You want multiple sentences, and there should be a bit of meat there, all right? There should be a little bit of detail. Just because it's big picture doesn't mean that it shouldn't include a detail. In fact, every one of these essays should include, I would say, at least one detail in the contextualization. So what you have here in the first paragraph, you've already earned 2 of the 7 points if you're doing this right, contextualization and thesis. That is why I have these 2 points right there with each other on the one rubric. So your goal is, by the time you've written a single paragraph, is a good 3 sentences or so of contextualization, followed by a 1 to 2 sentence thesis. Now remember, if it's a 2-sentence thesis, those 2 sentences need to be right there with each other. It needs to be obvious that the second sentence is a continuation of the line of reasoning that forms your thesis. So that's the first segment of this video. The next segment will focus on the documents. That's where 3 of the points are earned based on how you use the 7 documents. So go ahead and click through and continue if you would like to see how to earn the next 3 points. It's always a pleasure.